Book lovers, I'm Ashley,
And I'm Kendall, and welcome to Bound by Fantasy.
a channel all about books and bookish things.
And today we're going to be talking about A Court of Mist and Fury. Woo! It's my favorite of the series.
Yay.
So, you did it. You survived A Court of Thorns and Roses.
Yes.
You thought Farrah got her happy ending. And then you open this book.
Yes.
So, I mean, it starts off that obviously she went through a huge traumatic event. I mean, she had to kill three Fae, and one of them being Tamlin. She had to fight the Milgrim worm. She had to, well, we don't know what the poem was that she read, but it was there.
hmm
And so obviously she's traumatized. She comes back. She's having night terrors. She can't do the color red at all. And Tamlin is just there, I guess. That's how you can talk
Yeah.
about him. I mean, how did that make you feel that he just kind of dropped her almost in a sense?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I very quickly was becoming not a Tamlin fan and it just spiraled after that, obviously. But yeah, no, I feel like he just really wasn't helping her at all, right? Like she was having nightmares and he wasn't asking her like, what are you dreaming about? What are your nightmares about? Like he was just letting her be tormented essentially and not like doing anything about it. So yeah, I
Right.
mean, you would think if she wakes up like screaming and crying and throwing up every night, right? Like something's going on, right? So why are you not asking her about this? Like he's just like, all right, you deal with your thing, I'm gonna deal with mine, and let's just not talk about it, basically.
Right. And it's weird because I mean I still do. It's awkward, but I still do. I have a soft spot for Tamlin. I do. And other things happen, but he's not a nice guy, and he doesn't
Right.
make some decisions. But he also was going through his trauma too, and I guess that's what I recognize is
Yeah.
that what he did to her, 100% hands down, not okay. He wasn't there for her. He didn't do what he needed to do. He fell apart instead of stepping up. And what he thought he was doing was the right thing and it was completely the wrong thing. He wasn't listening to her. He got stuck in his trauma and his I need to protect, protect, protect. This is how I know to
hmm
protect. And that was it. So like I can kind of see his side, but in the grand scheme of things, what he did was wrong. I
Right.
mean, he didn't listen to her. She's going through all of this. She's losing a ton of weight. She looks like crap. And he's
Right. Right.
paying attention to it. I was like, how do you not know that she's losing a lot of weight, that she isn't sleeping, and why are we
Right.
brushing aside? And then, of course, he wants her to be best friends with Ianthe. And from the second that girl entered, I was like, don't like her. Sign me out. I don't know if you felt the same way, but I was like, something sketch. She's sketch. I don't like her. She came out of nowhere. She
Yeah.
didn't fit.
I
How
wasn't sure about her for a while because I feel like I'm like she needs somebody, like somebody she needs someone to help her, And I was hoping like maybe she would be that person. Like clearly she wasn't, but I
right.
don't know. I just kept hoping like maybe that's the person who's gonna like help her through all of this and all this trauma and everything. But yeah, I was like hopeful, I guess. I was hoping like somebody's gotta help her. She's just like drowning right now.
Right.
And I mean, yeah, in Tamlin's defense, like I can't imagine seeing the person that you love like dying in front of you, right? And like
Doing
not
nothing.
right, yeah, doing nothing. And yeah, but I I mean, he should have dealt with it differently, obviously. Like I guess like if I saw the person that I loved like die and then they came back, I would be like wanting to be with them 24/7 and not want to leave them probably. They'd be really annoyed with me. So
Like, what is going on? And
right. So it's so weird that he's just like kind of avoiding her and not talking to her and stuff as much as you would think he would.
right. I mean, how did you feel about Lucian kind of he obviously wasn't as bad as Tamlin because he saw Feyre
Right.
pulling back and not being herself and losing the
Yeah.
weight. But he didn't do anything about it. And I guess my perspective is Tamlin's all he has. Okay,
Yeah.
he has a tragic backstory. Tamlin is it for him. That is the only
Right.
family he has. So he's trying to hold on to Tamlin, but still be there for Feyre, and it's not working in his favor.
Right.
Uh, how did you feel about how he handles the whole thing, basically?
That was hard because yeah, I mean I can because I love Lucian. Like I really like him a lot, but like obviously this book like I'm like, oh I don't know, he was not in a good light in this book for sure.
No.
Um but yeah, I mean I get it because it's like he's Tamlin's right-hand man, right? And like ultimately like he left his court, he has to report to Tamlin, like that's his high fae that he's reporting to and his high lord, right? So it's like he's I think trying to help them both, but doesn't like he's stuck in the middle, right? And I don't think he handled it well, but I don't know that Tamlin gave him a lot of options on ways to handle it differently, if that makes sense. Like I feel like Tamlin put him in a really tough position and was just like, you're just gonna follow what I say, and that's just how it is. And it's like, well, if you get direct orders, you kind of have to follow that, right? But I mean, he was clearly trying to help and like really, I think trying to look out for Tamlin's best interest, even though Tamlin wasn't looking out for his own best interest. So yeah, it was tough because I'm like he wanted to help. Like I could see that he wanted to help, but he just wasn't able to.
Right. And
Yeah.
then obviously she's going through it, and then the wedding comes. So that's really soon after. I think it's chapter 4 or something that the
Yeah, it's
wedding.
pretty
That
early.
he, this is why I don't like Ianthe, and this is why it's like Ianthe was like she's a bad person because there was one color Feyre asked to not have at her wedding, and
Right.
that was and she walks out in that one hideous dress. Let's be real. The sound of it, Lucian laughed at it. It was
Oh
bad.
yeah. Yeah.
I looked up fan art and it was hysterical. Um, but she asked for no red and she comes out and there is red. And not
Hmm.
a little red, like splotches of red, very vibrant red mixed in with the
Right.
white, pops in her face, and she loses it.
Right. Which I don't blame her. Like, she asked, like you said, like to not have red because it's a very easy ask, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like clearly for good reason, But I mean, she didn't tell anybody, I don't think. Like she didn't really express that. She just said like don't put red because she wasn't really talking to everybody about it. But yeah, I no. I would have I there's no way I would have been able to go through with it either, honestly, at that point, because that was, she
Mm-hmm.
was so traumatized from that
And
experience. And like even like as she was preparing for the wedding though, like you could tell she just didn't she's like, it'll get better when we're married, like things will get better. And it's like marriage doesn't fix everything, Like you
correct.
have to have a good like foundation, right? You can't just pretend that marriage is I'm like, please let her not get married, honestly, or like let them figure it out or something because
Right.
doesn't fix anything like, huge problems like that, right? So might put a band-aid on things for a temporary period of time, but that's not going to solve the fact that like he's not supporting her, he's not helping her through any of this, right? Like, and as her husband, like he should be, like
Mm.
as her fiance, he should be, right? Like helping her through everything, right? In
Right.
sickness and in health. So yeah, no, I felt like the whole lead up to that, I'm just like, it was making me sick to my stomach. And then when I like read that part with like the red, I was like, oh man, like yeah, totally understood why she freaked out for sure.
And she goes and like obviously she's screaming in her head, help me, someone help me. Tamlin is seeing her hesitate and doesn't understand because again, he is not understanding her trauma and is just not there
Right,
for her. But then, of course, Rasan comes in and he just
right,
was like, boop, nope, no wedding today. You come with
right.
me.
You're coming
Right.
with me.
And when you're first reading this, obviously we know how the book ends now, but when you're first reading it, even then you're like, thank you. Like
Yes.
you still aren't
Yeah.
in the throes with Reese, but right then and there, you're like, thank you. And he looks at her and you can tell he's like, she's messed up. What
Yeah.
is going on? And he's
Right.
mad. He's like,
Well,
she
yeah, he's like, she's lost weight, right? Like she's clearly upset. And she doesn't know that he was also like experiencing her waking up and stuff too, right? At that point. But like he was, and he I think was just hoping it was gonna get better because he wanted the best for her too, right? But
right.
obviously like we learned that down the road a little bit. But yeah, but no, absolutely. I was like, oh my gosh, thank you. Get her out of there. Like
Get her
we're
out of
missing
there.
Grease in here. Yeah.
So even though she doesn't want to get married, she is terrified to go to the night court because
Hmm.
everyone says how horrible it is, how bad it is. And he brings her there and kind of like drops her off and realizes she needs like help out of her trauma and he's there for her. And I think that is where it really turned the tide with me. Like even the simple thing of him helping her to read and write.
Yes. Yeah.
Basic principles that Tamlin, come on, why weren't you helping her do any of this?
Right.
And we know he is traumatized. Like stuff happened underneath the mountain. We know that he didn't agree to. I mean, we saw that scene in the last book when he like breaks in the cell with her.
Right.
And then he's still helping her deal with hers. And that's
Right.
where I'm like, okay, this dude might be a good dude.
Right, exactly. Well, and even just the fact that like she asked Tamlin to train her and he was like, "No, I'm not training you." Right? Like he was like, "I'm not training you on anything. I'm not teaching you anything." Like because they were starting to learn that she has powers too, right? And he was not willing to like teach her anything. So even the fact that yeah, Rhysand started teaching her how to read, which was clearly like a huge hurdle for her in the last like challenge and everything, that he didn't want to be an obstacle for her ever again. I was like, okay, great. Like even if that's the only thing he does, that's still like well,
At
way
least
better
he
than what
found
Tamlin's doing, right? Yeah,
Let's
exactly.
just say the thing she had to read and write. Rysand is the most beautiful man ever. Rysand is the best.
Oh my
I
God, I loved that.
I thought this is the best you could do. Like it's all about him. And I was like, that's icing on the cake. It's so funny.
Yeah,
He's
it
gonna
was
learn
so
to
great.
read because of how you want her to think of you. I was like, good twist on that, bud. Good twist.
Yeah. No, I love that. That was great. Well, and he was still like playing his part, right? Like he was playing the part that he was, kind of keeping up from the last book, but even still, like that was a huge like gesture to her
Right.
as well. That I think she just, I don't know, honestly, like I became not really a big Feyre fan for most of this book. Like I was getting real annoyed with her. I'm like, girl, she's helping you. Like he's helping you. And like, what are you
Not
doing here?
oh yeah. Like
She was just
girl.
getting so mad at everything. And I'm like, no, like he's helping you. Tamlin's terrible. Like, leave him. What are we doing here? Like, I was getting very frustrated with her. And I'm like,
Pick's a good
I,
one.
yeah, right? Exactly. I was getting really frustrated with her throughout this one. I'm like, I don't know if I can handle this. She was making me mad.
Right. And especially when they're doing the back and forth and she goes back and he comes and gets her again. And it's almost like the progress he makes a little bit while she's with Reese is like that backtracked when she's with Tamlin because again she's
Right.
not prepared for.
Hmm.
And the all-time tipping point high happens when Tamlin locks her in the house.
Right.
And that is like the epitome. I remember you texting me and be like, he locked her in the house with explanation points. And I was like, yes, he did. And it's going to get better.
I was so mad. I was like, what are you doing right now? Like, no. And I was like so happy that, Rhysand sent more to come like save her, right? But that she also just because I was like I said, I was getting very frustrated with Feyre at that point too, because she was just honestly, like part of this was her fault. She was just letting it all happen. Like, yes, Tamlin was like, he was the one who locked her in the house, right? Like, he's the one not training her and stuff. But like, she wasn't really pushing very hard against any of it either. She was kind of just letting it happen. So it made me
Right.
really frustrated. And so the fact that she was like, no, this is like this is a breaking point. Like I was like, okay, good. Something needs to tell you this is enough. Enough is enough. So I was actually glad like that she reacted how she did, and that, obviously Reese sent more to come get her out, and they, got her out of there. But also like I was like, is she gonna go back? Like, is she gonna end up just going back anyway and trying to talk to him? And I was glad that she like right away was just like, I don't want to go back. That was
Right. Yeah. And I think that with everything going on and she finally realizes he's not taking care of her. And another point I forgot is the first time she comes back from the night court, instead of Tamlin rushing to her and be like, "Are you okay? Like, did he hurt you? What happened? Like, let me just be in your presence." He's like, "We're gonna go question you now." I'm like,
yeah,
excuse me, your wife was just abducted on your wedding day. She comes
right,
and you're like, let's sit you down for an interrogation. Tell us everything.
right,
Like, come on, dude. Like,
right.
you need to handle your trauma because you got some.
Yeah, for real. No, that was extremely, extremely frustrating. And again, like I was mad at her though. I'm like, why are you just telling him all these things? Like, not that she was telling him like so much, but it was just like what like the person who's actually helping you, you're like, I don't know. It was very frustrating. I'm like, you're you're like letting the person who's like treating you like garbage just walk all over you. You're giving away secrets of the person who is trying to help you, right? And just
Right.
letting it happen. So that no, that was so frustrating. I forgot about that part. It was maybe I tried to mentally block it out. Just
Right.
couldn't handle
I mean, just so much
it.
happens that's traumatizing and
Yeah.
those back and forth moments. Like even
Yes.
something simple when like she puts her night court clothes back on to go back and some they're getting looser and looser. And
Yeah.
like that's not okay. Or how she sees Tamlin interact during I think it's called the tithe. Is that correct? I don't know. When all the fairies have to come and pay him and he doesn't care
Oh, yes.
the water wraith. The
Right.
water
Right.
it's like, I don't care. They eat all their money, I don't care.
Right.
And that's not no, like you need to care about your subjects. And he gets so mad at her when she gives the jewelry to the water wraith. And I'm
Yes.
because she's like a actual queen. You are just a dictator.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
they're
and like I don't know, for how much he cared, like he seemed to care about his like people and everything, like that felt a little out of character for him. But I'm wondering if part of like his trauma like caused some of that, or if he's like kind of always been like that. Like, did he always, well, it sounded like they hadn't done it in a really long time, right?
right,
Um, because they were in prison for forever. So,
right.
but I'm curious, like, if he hadn't undergone all of that trauma, if he would have been a little bit more caring toward his subjects too, because he just wasn't caring toward anybody. Like, he wasn't caring toward her, right? So it's like, would that have been different if he hadn't gone through all of that too? I'm not sure.
Correct. And like he's just not dealing with anything. He's making
Hmm.
the wrong decisions. I mean, he's again obsessed with her wanting to paint and wanting her to be like this perfect little princess, and she's not.
Right.
He went through a really traumatic event. She wants to defend herself at the minimum, and he's not okay with that, which,
Right.
like, hands down, I'd be like, no, you just almost died for me. You want to learn how to fight and save yourself? Sign up. Let's go.
Absolutely. Right.
And just like, oh gosh, just so many things happen. And when they find out she has the powers, right? She's has the powers of the other lords.
Hmm.
And he is all about hide it, hide it, hide it, hide it.
Yes.
That you can't let anyone know. We have to keep you a secret. Hide it. Like again, another reason he locks her in. Like you can't show anyone all this because they're come and
Right.
kill you. Okay, so if they could come and kill her, help her defend herself, right?
Right. Well, and also like I don't know. I'm like, maybe I've just read way too many of these books and seen too many movies, but it's like anybody who has power that doesn't get trained on it, it does not end well, right? Like bad
Yeah,
things will happen. Like if you have untapped power and you don't have control over it, bad things are going to happen and it's going to like come out of you and you can hurt people, right? Instead of like being trained and being able to handle it correctly and, knowing how to harness your power in the right way, even if it's just like learning to control the power, maybe not use it as a weapon or whatever, but some sort of training for her would have been helpful. So,
right.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But luckily, Moore comes and takes her out of the house, and we officially start part two, House of Wind. She is in the House of Wind, solidly in the Night Court. She's going to, like, she decides she's staying. She's not
Hmm.
going there. And he's like, fine, that's fine with me. You're not going back. And then it's kind of like a little bit of a limbo of like, okay, where does she fit? And
Yeah.
she offered by Reese to join their fight and he'll tell her what's going on. He doesn't want to obviously tell her right away because what if she went back and told Tamlin? And obviously he was validated because when she first went
She
back,
did. Yeah.
she was instantly interrogated by him. So that was kind of bad. And so she spends more time there and she kind of like figures out maybe I do need to know what's going on and be a part of it.
Hmm.
So come back for part two when we talk about what happens to Feyre as she goes into the House of Winds. And if you liked what you saw, don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell, and join our fellow community of bookworms.
Because here at Bound by Fantasy, the adventure never ends.
See you next time for part two.
See you next time.